Checking in? The woman behind the front desk said it the way people say things they don't really mean to say out loud. A reflex, not a greeting. Her eyes moved from the rolling carry-on to the woman holding it, then back again, the kind of sweep that takes less than a second and somehow decides everything. The woman at the counter didn't flinch. She set her bag down. She said, yes. Her name was Simone Alder. She was 43 years old. She was wearing a navy cardigan that had been washed too many times, dark jeans, and flat shoes that had seen better years. Her hair was natural, pulled back without ceremony. She had driven 4 hours from Charlotte because her daughter had asked her to come, and she had come because that was the kind of mother Simone was, the kind who showed up. The lobby of the Ardmore Grand was the kind of place that made you feel like you had wandered in from the wrong life. Marble floors the color of cream. A chandelier that dropped from a ceiling so high it seemed to belong to a different building. The front desk was a slab of dark oak with brass inlay, and behind it stood 2 clerks in slate-gray uniforms, a younger woman with a tight smile and a man in his mid-40s who had not looked up from his computer since Simone walked in. The younger woman's name tag said Jessica. Last name? Jessica asked. Alder. Jessica typed, stopped, typed again. Then she tilted her head slightly, the way people do when they've found something they weren't expecting. Alder, she repeated. That's right. Another pause. Jessica's eyes moved sideways, just barely, toward her colleague. The man still hadn't looked up, but something in the set of his shoulders changed. I'm showing a reservation under that name, Jessica said slowly, but the suite that's been booked. She paused again. Ma'am, are you sure you have the right hotel? Simone looked at her. I'm sure because the suite that's been reserved is the Ardmore penthouse, and I know what it is, Simone said. Her voice was even. Not cold, not sharp, just settled, the way voices get when a person has been exactly who they are for a long time and has stopped needing anyone else to confirm it. Jessica looked at her again, at the cardigan, at the worn-down flats, at the carry-on that had a small scuff on the left wheel. Let me get my manager, Jessica said. The man behind the desk looked up for the first time. His name was Keith Drummond. He had been the guest services director at the Ardmore Grand for 11 years. He had a way of moving through the lobby that suggested he considered it his personal territory. The slow, deliberate pace of a man who had never once in 11 years felt unwelcome in a room. He was tall, white, somewhere in his early 50s, with silver hair kept very neat, and a tie that was always just slightly too tight. He came around the end of the desk and stopped a careful distance from Simone, close enough to be dismissive, far enough to be deniable. Good afternoon, he said. I understand there may be some confusion about your reservation. There's no confusion on my end, Simone said. Keith smiled. It was a particular kind of smile, thin, patient. The smile of a man who has decided before the conversation starts that he is dealing with someone who doesn't belong. We want to make sure every guest has the right experience, he said. The penthouse suite is a very specific accommodation, very specific clientele. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable in one of our deluxe king rooms? I can personally see to it that I booked the penthouse, Simone said. 3 weeks ago, confirmation number AGL 7749. My daughter is competing in a regional gymnastics invitational at the convention center 2 blocks from here. She asked me to stay close. I booked the penthouse because I wanted a kitchen so I could cook for her between rounds, that is all. Keith studied her. A beat passed that was 1 beat too long. I'm sure that's the case, he said with the tone of a man who was not sure of that at all. But given the nature of the reservation, the penthouse has certain requirements. We do like to run additional verification for first-time guests at that level. Standard protocol. I've stayed here before, Simone said. Keith's smile stayed in place, but something behind his eyes recalibrated. Ma'am, I don't have any record of. 2 years ago, presidential suite. March. My name is in your system. He turned back to the desk. Jessica was already looking, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. The man she found in the system was not who Keith Drummond had spent the last 3 minutes constructing in his mind. But Keith didn't see Jessica's screen. He had already made his decision, the way certain people make decisions, early and hard, cemented before the evidence arrives. He turned back to Simone. I'm going to need to ask you to step aside while we sort this out, he said. We have other guests checking in. Simone looked around the lobby. There were 2 other people waiting, A couple, middle-aged, white, with matching luggage sets and the relaxed posture of people who had never been asked to step aside in their lives. They had been standing there for perhaps 40 seconds. They had not been interrupted. They had not been asked for additional verification. They had not been smiled at with that particular kind of smile. Simone stepped aside. She did not take out her phone. She did not raise her voice. She stood near the window with her carry-on and looked out at the street, where afternoon light was cutting long gold stripes across the pavement, and she waited. Inside her chest, something was very still. That stillness was not peace. It was the particular calm that comes from knowing, from having known for a long time, exactly how this kind of moment works and exactly how it ends. She had been in rooms like this before. She had been made to wait before. She had been smiled at with that smile before. She waited. The couple checked in. They were given a room on the 14th floor. They thanked Jessica warmly. They rolled their matching luggage toward the elevator, and one of them laughed at something the other said, a bright, easy sound that filled the lobby and then disappeared. Keith came back. "Mrs. Alder," he said, "I've spoken with my supervisor and given some irregularities in the booking. We're going to need to see a form of physical ID and a credit card present at check-in. Not our usual policy, but for reservations at this level. You took a credit card when I made the reservation," Simone said. "Yes, and you have a copy of my ID on file from my previous stay." Keith's jaw tightened just slightly. "Our records don't always." "Jessica found it," Simone said. "I watched her find it about 8 minutes ago." Jessica, to her credit, did not look up from the desk. Keith reset. He had the practiced flexibility of a man who had spent years being wrong in public and had developed a system for pivoting without appearing to pivot. "We simply want to make sure our penthouse guests have the most comfortable possible experience," he said. "If you'd like, I can walk you through the features of our deluxe accommodations, Mr. Drummond," Simone said. He stopped. She had not raised her voice. She was still standing near the window. She had not moved. But something about the way she said his name, like she had read it and filed it and decided what to do with it, made the air in the lobby change the way air changes right before a storm. Not dramatically, just differently. "I don't want a different room," she said. "I want the room I reserved, and I want the key." He looked at her, at the cardigan again, at the flat shoes, at the carry-on with the scuffed wheel. His expression didn't change, but she could see the calculation behind it, the man adding things up and arriving at a number he was confident in. "I'm afraid I can't accommodate that request without completing our verification process," he said. "If you're uncomfortable with our requirements, you're welcome to find alternate accommodations, and we'll refund your—" "Call your regional director," Simone said. A pause. "Ma'am, call him. Tell him Keith Drummond at the Ardmore Grand is declining to check in a guest who has a confirmed reservation, a previous stay on file, and a valid booking confirmation. Tell him the guest's name is Simone Alder." She paused one beat, and then watch his face. Keith Drummond had been doing this job for 11 years. He had navigated difficult guests. He had managed complaints and confrontations and the occasional scene. He had a system for all of it, a set of phrases and de-escalation techniques he had refined over a decade, and none of them had ever told him what to do when a woman in a worn cardigan stood near a window and said a name with the specific weight of a person who knows exactly how much that name is worth. He hesitated. The hesitation was small. Maybe 2 seconds, but in a hotel lobby with marble floors that carry sound differently than carpet does, 2 seconds is a very long time. He walked to the desk. He picked up the phone. He spoke quietly, his back half turned, and Jessica busied herself with something on her screen. Simone could see the back of Keith's neck. She watched the color in it change. The call was short. When Keith turned around, his face had done something complicated. The smile was still there. Technically, the muscles were still in the right positions, but something behind it had shifted, the way a building looks the same from the outside even after the foundation has moved. "Mrs. Alder," he said, "please accept my apologies for the delay. I'd like the key," she said. He went to the desk himself. He typed. He pulled out a key card and slid it into an envelope. He walked it back to her with both hands, the way you carry something when you've just understood what you're carrying. She took it. She thanked him, not warmly, not coldly, evenly. She thanked him the way she thanked people, which was sincerely and without performance. She went to the elevator. She pressed the button for the top floor. What Keith Drummond learned in the next 4 hours, in installments, through a series of conversations he had not planned to have, and would not quickly forget, was this. Simone Alder was not someone who had stumbled into the wrong hotel with a lucky credit card. Simone Alder was the founder and executive chair of Alder & Cross Capital, a private equity firm that had been quietly acquiring hospitality assets in the southeastern United States for 9 years. The Ardmore Grand was not one of those assets, but the fund that owned the management company that contracted the Ardmore Grand's operational team was. It was a distinction that would have meant nothing to most people, and meant everything to Keith. He learned this at 4:47 p.m. from the regional director, who learned it at 4:38 p.m. from the VP of Partnerships, who had gotten a call he described to his assistant afterward as the kind of call you do not want to get on a Tuesday. At 5:15 p.m., the VP of Partnerships called the Ardmore Grand's general manager, a woman named Patricia Dunn, who had been at a regional hospitality conference in Atlanta, and was now driving back 4 hours early with her phone on speaker and her knuckles white on the wheel. At 6 p.m., Keith Drummond was asked to wait in the general manager's office. He waited. Upstairs, Simone unpacked her bag with the careful efficiency of a person who has traveled alone for years and knows exactly where everything goes. She put her things in the bathroom. She put her cardigan over the chair near the window. She called her daughter. Her daughter's name was Zoe. She was 17. She had her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness, and she was the best gymnast in her age division in 3 states, a fact she mentioned to no one because she had also inherited her mother's distaste for premature declarations. "Mom, you made it." "I made it," Simone said. "Is the hotel nice?" Simone looked out the window. The city was arranging itself into evening, the buildings going warm at the edges, the streets below filling with the particular movement of people who are done with the day and starting on the night. "It's fine," she said. "Mom, I can hear your voice. I'm fine. How was practice?" A pause on Zoe's end. "Something happened. Nothing I haven't seen before." Another pause. Then, "I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Eat something before you sleep. Real food." After she hung up, Simone sat in the chair by the window for a moment. Not long. She wasn't the kind of person who sat in chairs very long, but she sat there in the last light of the afternoon, in her cardigan, in a room she had earned and been made to prove she'd earned, and she let herself feel it, the particular tired weight of a life spent being underestimated by people who should have known better, who would never stop not knowing better, who would do it again tomorrow to someone else, in some other lobby, with some other smile. She sat with that for exactly as long as she needed to. Then she stood up and went to the kitchen and started cooking. At 7:30 that evening, Simone's phone rang. The number was the hotel's main line. "Mrs. Alder." It was a woman's voice, controlled, careful. "This is Patricia Dunn. I'm the general manager of the Ardmore Grand. I want to personally apologize for the experience you had at check-in this afternoon. What you were subjected to was completely unacceptable, and I want you to know that it does not reflect." "Monsieur Dunn," Simone said. She was standing at the counter, a wooden spoon in her hand. On the stove, something good was happening. "I appreciate the call. I want to assure you that we are taking immediate corrective action." "I don't need assurances," Simone said, "but there's something I'd like you to understand." A careful pause on the other end. "Of course! The woman who walked into your lobby this afternoon." Simone set the spoon down. She wasn't dressed the way certain people think she should be dressed to be worth treating well. She didn't announce herself. She didn't come in with a team or a car service or a title in front of her name. She was a mother who drove 4 hours to be close to her daughter, and she had a reservation that she had paid for, and she was made to stand aside and wait while other guests were not. She paused. "That's what happened. That needs to be what you're correcting. Not the part where you found out who I am. The part that happened before that." A longer pause. "You're right," Patricia Dunn said, and to her credit, and it was real credit, the kind that cost something, she said it simply without cushion. "You are absolutely right. Thank you for calling," Simone said. She hung up. She picked the spoon back up. She stirred what was on the stove. At 8:45 that night, Keith Drummond left the Ardmore Grand for the last time as an employee. He carried a box that was not heavy, 11 years, and it turned out most of what he'd accumulated was paper. He walked past the front desk without looking at it. He walked through the lobby without stopping. He pushed through the brass-handled door and into the night air, and he stood on the sidewalk for a moment, the box under his arm, the city moving around him the way it always moves, without acknowledgement, without pause. He thought about the woman in the cardigan. He thought about the calculation he had run and how certain he had been of the answer. He thought about how many times he had run that same calculation, and how many times he had been certain, and how many times no one had ever called him on it. He thought about all the people who would never call him on it. He walked to his car. The next morning, Simone was in the lobby at 7:15 with a container of food for Zoe. Something warm, something real, the kind of meal that takes time and intention, and a mother who drove 4 hours because she was asked to. She was wearing the same navy cardigan. She had washed it the night before in the penthouse laundry and hung it to dry, and it looked exactly as it had always looked. Jessica was at the desk. When Simone walked past, Jessica looked up. Their eyes met for a moment. "Good morning, Mrs. Alder," Jessica said. "Good morning," Simone said. She walked out through the brass door and into the October air, and she crossed the 2 blocks to the convention center, and she found Zoe in the warm-up area, a small figure in a blue leotard with her hair pulled back tight and her jaw set in that particular way, the inherited way, the way that meant she had already decided how the day was going to go. "Mom." Zoe's face opened up. "You brought food. I brought food." Zoe opened the container and looked at it, and then looked at her mother. "Did you make this last night? In the hotel? It has a kitchen." Zoe shook her head slowly, the way teenagers shake their heads at their mothers when they can't quite figure out how to say what they mean. "You didn't have to." "Eat," Simone said. Zoe ate. Simone stood beside her daughter in the warm-up area of the convention center, the noise and color of the competition filling the air around them, and she watched Zoe eat and thought about kitchens and carry-ons and lobbies, and the way certain people look at you, and the way that look is supposed to make you small, and the way, after enough years, after enough lobbies, after enough of those smiles, it simply doesn't anymore. It doesn't make you angry. It doesn't make you bitter. It makes you very, very clear about what you've built, about the difference between being seen and being underestimated, and the fact that one of those things has power over you only for as long as you let it. Zoe finished eating. She handed the container back to her mother. She rolled her shoulders. She looked at the mat. "I'm ready," she said. "I know," Simone said. "Here's what people don't talk about enough when they talk about these moments, the lobby moments, the restaurant moments, the hotel moments, the waiting to be seen as someone worth serving moments. They talk about the twist. They talk about the reveal. They talk about the manager finding out, the phone call, the firing. And those things matter. Justice matters. But what they don't talk about is the woman in the cardigan. The woman who already knew how that lobby was going to go before she even walked through the door. The woman who didn't shout or perform or wait for someone to validate what she already knew to be true about herself. The woman who stood near the window and waited with that particular kind of stillness and just held on to who she was through every minute of it. That woman existed before anyone made a phone call. That woman will exist after every Keith Drummond in every lobby of every hotel in this country moves on to the next lobby and runs the same calculation on the next woman with the wrong cardigan. And that woman is everywhere. Now, if this story moved you, if it made you feel something you recognized, leave a comment below. Tell me, has someone ever looked at you and gotten you completely wrong? And what did it feel like when they found out? Drop your answer down there. It matters. Every single one of those stories matters. And if you want to see more stories like this one, stories about dignity, about patience, about what happens when people finally have to face what they've done, hit subscribe. We put out new stories every week. And share this one, because somewhere out there, somebody needs to hear it today.